dividing by whole numbers. So the first thing you want to do when you're dividing by whole numbers is you want to set up your problem and write a decimal point at the end of the dividend. Remember, the dividend is going to be your first number, and then your second number is your divisor. So the dividend is going to go into your division box, and the divisor is going to go outside your division box. You want to add a 0 in the tens place. So there is a mnemonic device for remembering the steps of division. So our mnemonic device is, does McDonald's serve cheeseburgers? So the does stand for divide, then the McDonald's stands for multiply, the serve stands for subtract, and the burger stand for bring down. After you bring down each digit, remember you're only bringing down one digit at a time, you're going to start the process over. So this is a neat little way to remember the steps in division, and you can always color this hamburger in so that it's a little more delicious. So again, the steps to division: divide, decide how many times the divisor will go into the dividend. Then you're going to multiply, subtract, bring down the next digit, repeat. You're going to add zeros if necessary to the dividend and continue dividing until your remainder becomes a 0. Then after you get a quotient, you want to multiply to check the answer. So in other words, you are multiplying the quotient times the divisor, and that will check to see if you got the dividend. So let's do some examples together. So example number 1, we have 20 divided by 8. So 25 is my dividend, and 8 is my divisor. So again, the 25 as the dividend comes first. Your second number is your divisor. So you want to put your 25 inside the box. 8 goes outside the box. And then you're going to put your decimal at the end of the dividend and put your decimal in the quotient straight up. Then you're going to divide. How many times can 8 go into 25? That's 3 times. Then you're going to multiply. 3 times 8 is 24. Then you're going to subtract. 5 minus 4 is 1, and 2 minus 2 is 0. Then you want to bring down, but as you can see, I have nothing to bring down, so add a 0. I'm bringing down the 0, then I'm going to divide. 8 into 10 goes 1 time. 1 times 8 is 8. 10 minus 8 is 2. Again, put another 0, and then bring it down. 8 and 20 goes twice. 2 times 8 is 16. Then subtract 20 minus 16 is 4. Bring down another 0. 8 into 40 goes 5 times. 5 times 8 is 40. As you can see, I have a remainder of 0. Then I want to check it. So again, I'm going to multiply your quotient, or your answer to your division problem, times your divisor, which is 8. Let's see if we get the dividend. So 5 times 8 is 40, carry the 4. 2 times 8 is 16, plus the 4 is 20. 1 times 8 is 8, plus 2 is 10. Carry the 1. 3 times 8 is 24, plus 1 is 25. And of course, I have 1, 2, 3 decimal places in my top number and 0 in the bottom number. So I'm going to move out 1, 2, 3, and I do get 25, so it checks. Okay, let's do the next problem. Okay, example number 2. Okay, I'm going to set it up. 857 divided by 4. And how many times is 4 going to 8? So I'm dividing. 4 into 8 is twice. 2 times 4 is going to be 8. Bring down the next number, which is the 5, after I subtract. 4 and a 5 goes once. 1 times 4. I'm going to multiply. Oops, that's subtraction. 5 minus 4 is going to be 1. Then bring down my 7, the next digit. 4 and a 17 goes 4 times. 4 times 4, I'm multiplying. Subtract. I got a 1. You notice I don't have any other things to bring down. Remember, you're going to add a decimal at the end of the dividend, add another 0. Don't forget to put that decimal straight up in the quotient. Bring down my 0. 4 and a 10 goes twice. 2 times 4 gives me 8. Okay, bring down another 0. 4 and a 20 goes 5. 5 times 4 gives me 20. And it's 0. So my answer is going to be 214 and 25 hundredths. And of course you can multiply this times your divisor, which is 4, and you should get 875 as my 857 as my answer if you multiply your quotient times your divisor, and it will check. All right, let's go to example number 3. 4 divided by 5. Okay, so I'm going to set it up. The first number goes in my box. That's your dividend. Second number is my divisor. That goes outside. I'm going to add a decimal and another 0 after the decimal. Put your decimal straight up in your quotient, then divide. How many times does 5 go into 4? It can't. 0. Okay? But can 5 go into 40? Yes, it goes in 8 times. 8 times 5 gives me 40. I'm going to subtract. That's a 0. So my answer is 8/10. And if I want to check it, 8/10 times 5 will give me 8 times 5 is 40, carry the 4. 0 times 5 is 0, plus 4 is 4. There's one decimal place in the top number. One decimal place goes in the answer, so I do get 4 as my answer, which is the dividend, what I started with. Okay, let's go to example number 4. All right, so this looks a little different. I've got 165 over 6. So 165, this isn't a fraction. This is an improper fraction. But the fraction bar really means division. So the top number is always going to be my dividend. So I want to put that number in the box and 6 outside. Remember, you're adding a decimal, putting the decimal straight up in the quotient, and you want to add a 0 at the end, in the 10th place. Then you're going to divide. 6 into 16 goes twice. 2 times 16 is 12. 16 minus 12 gives me 4. Then bring down the next digit, which is a 5. How many times does 6 go into 45? 6 goes into 45, 7. 7 times 6 gives me 42. 3 left over. Bring down the next digit, which is your 0. 6 into 30 goes 5 times. 5 times 6, 30. So my answer is 27 and 5/10. Again, if I wanted to check this, 27 and 5/10 times 6, I would get 165. Carry the 3, that's 45. Carry the 4. 12 times 6, or 2 times 6 is 12, plus the 4 is 16. One thing in the decimal, or one place value in my top number, and I get 165, which is my dividend. So it checks. Okay. Example number 5. All right. We've got 536 divided by 40. So 536 is in my box. 40 is outside my box. You want to add a decimal at the end of the dividend and put the decimal straight up. How many times does 40 go into 5? It can't. 40 into 53 once. 1 times 40 is 40. That's 3 left over, 13 left over. Bring down the next digit, 6. Okay, so now I can do 40 into 136. How many times? Well, 4, if you check 4, how many times in 4 go into 13? That's about 3 times. So 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 4 is 12. If I tried 4, it would be too much, so it's going to go in 3 times. 6 minus 0 is 6. 3 minus 2 is 1. Remember to add a 0. Bring down your 0. 4 into 16 goes 4. 4 times 0 is 0. 4 times 4 is 16. And then I got a remainder of 0. If I wanted to go ahead and check this, 13 and 4/10 times 40. Of course, all these numbers times 0 would be 0. Your placeholder, 16, 4 times 4 is 16, carry the 1. 3 times 4 is 12, carry the 1 is 13. 1 times 4 is 4 plus 1 is 5. And I would get 536. Remember, there's a decimal place, 1 decimal place, move it over so it checks. Okay, last example is a word problem. So Mrs. Brown wants to buy donuts for her students. If she has 102 students, how many dozens of donuts will she need to buy in order to have enough donuts for all of her students? How many donuts will be left over for her teachers? So she's going to buy a whole dozen donuts. And donuts only come in a dozen. So what I'm going to do is she's got 102 students. And she's going to divide by a dozen. And a dozen equals 12. So she wants to know how many dozens she needs for 102 kids. 12 doesn't go into 1, 12 doesn't go into 10, so how many times is 12 go into 2? Well, 12 into 2 goes at least 8 times. And 8 times 2 is 6. Carry the 1, 8 times 1 is 8 plus the 1 is 96. You subtract, you notice you got 6 left over, okay? So she's going to need, that means she's got 6 donuts left over, but she's going to be buying dozens of donuts. So that means those 6 left over, that's going to make another dozen donuts. So if 12 times 8 gives her 96 donuts, that's 8 dozen donuts. If 12 times 9 dozen donuts, that's going to give her 108 donuts. So she's going to need 9 dozen donuts. She's going to need 9 dozen donuts to make sure she has 1 donut per student. And then we can figure out how much she can give to her teachers. So if she's got 108 donuts for 9 dozen donuts, that means I can do 108 donuts total minus 102 for her students. She will have 6 donuts left over for the teachers. And there you have it. That is dividing by whole numbers. Notes. Don't forget you can color in this hamburger, making it colorful and make it a little more delicious and tasty. So, dividing by whole numbers, notes.